I'm the executive editor of Three Pines Press, and today we're introducing a new book, and we're very excited to have the author here. The title of the book is The Way of Awareness in Taoist Philosophy, and it has just come out. It's available on our website, threepinespress.com, and the author is renowned, internationally well-known philosopher James Giles, and we're welcoming him today. And my first question to Professor Giles is, what made him, as a more generic philosopher and interested in all kinds of relevant topics in the present age, what did make him interested in Taoism? So welcome, Professor Giles, and please tell us about your interest in Taoism.
Thank you very much, Livia. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very happy to have my book with your press and to know that a Taoist press is interested in my work. So I'm pleased with that. And I suppose it's a difficult question in a way because I have interests as a philosopher, but I'm also very interested in culture and in psychology, anthropology, and particularly East Asia. And one of the things that has developed through my career in philosophy is an awareness of the commonality of human conditions in different cultures. So I sort of came to reject the idea of social constructionism, that there's truths are only constructed by the culture. And I began to see similar concerns and existentialist interests in different cultures. And because of my interest in Asian culture, I started reading different Asian thinkers, and particularly Lao Tzu and the Taoists. And I got very interested in how they were approaching the same questions that the ancient Greeks would look at, or that the postmodern philosophers would look at, and dealing with them in a slightly different way and coming from a different tradition, but still focusing on those issues that we as common human beings have in our existence. We appear in a world without our choice. We are thrown into a situation in which we have to make split, and then we have to depart, whether or not we want to. And this is a common aspect of all human Taoists. We're dealing with these issues in very interesting ways that put a different angle on it than the Western philosophers and the ancient Greeks. So I approached it that way, not as a sinologist. I'm very interested in Chinese culture, and I've traveled all throughout China and read a lot about Chinese thought, but I was particularly interested in it from a philosophical point of view.
That's absolutely fascinating, and it's really nice to realize that people who are not really centered in the Chinese or Taoist traditions are starting to pay serious attention to Taoism, and that Taoism is starting to really become part of this global interchange and global dialogue. And that is so important because for so many years Taoists have lagged behind. There was a lot of discussion of Buddhist philosophy like decades before anybody started talking about Taoism, and it's fascinating that you are bringing that into the global context. So how exactly would you describe your take on the Taoist tradition, and where is it new and different from the more standard vision that people who are studying Taoism and that have read the tradition are sort of familiar with?
Okay, I think that my interest in Taoist thought is, I noted that there was much discussion about awareness and perception and how that is related to the world. And as I read the Taoist texts, I saw that really they were interested in the empirical world and in a philosophical psychology and how our relation to nature and to society was built. And that became the core of my interest. And when I read other interpretations about Lao Tzu as being a mystic and talking about otherworldly things and cosmological ideas, I found that that was really imposed on him. And I thought, that's not what he's doing. And when I looked at other Taoist writers too, Zhuangzi and Laozi, they, I found, were saying a very similar thing. And I began to wonder if the Tao was really another way of speaking of the way of awareness. Tao means the way, and it struck me that awareness is what they're talking about. And so I think my approach to the common, if you compare it to a lot of sinologists who are looking at it, is I don't see it as being a form of mysticism. I know that later Taoism did develop in this way and became a religious tradition, but I don't think there's any really good reasons to think this was going on in early Taoist thought. What was particularly interested me was the interest in meditation and how Taoism focused on cultivation of awareness. And this cultivation of awareness, of course, some people could think that what's going on is a mystical state he was talking about, where you sit down and you cultivate a mystical connection with the cosmos or something beyond the empirical world. But looking at the different chapters in the Tao Te Ching, I saw that that's not really what's going on. He's talking more about our relation to the world. And there is a normative aspect of it too, how we can relate in a more healthy way and how we can benefit from this and how we can avoid stress. And this comes out very clearly in Zhuangzi. He is clearly interested in our condition as a health aspect of how we can use awareness.
Very good. And that brings me to a point that I think our readers will find most relevant today, because we are in a situation where the world obviously is not healthy on a number of different levels. And so where do you see this kind of awareness of Tao and the sense of flow and the whole way that the Taoist tradition, and it's not just Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi and Liezi, but you also talk about Yang Zhu, and you talk about the Neye, which is the inward training book that's found in the Guanzi, and you also talk about the dark or mystery learning, the Xuanxue of the early Six Dynasties. So the book has much more bigger scope than just Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi, although they are obviously at the center of the Taoist tradition. So where do you see the relevance of this for people today, where their own awareness can change, excuse me, their own awareness can change and they can live a healthier way in this kind of world that we are facing today?
Well, I think that the inward training is a good point on just this topic, because it's a much neglected text, and people that have dealt with it have tried to make it into a mystical text, whereas I think it really is concerned about human well-being and how we can focus on and harness a type of awareness that doesn't damage our health and that puts us in a more harmonious relation, not only with the world, but with others too. And they talk about in the inward training, the focus is very much on meditation and on cultivating this state of awareness where you don't see yourself as separate from the world. You see yourself connected. And in doing this, this ties it also fascinatingly with the Buddhist tradition, where the meditation is a way of achieving something that allows you to avoid separating yourself from nature and separating things and then becoming worried about your own condition rather than seeing yourself as intimately connected with everything. And I think that that can definitely help for people to look at the inward training and to see it as a meditational text. And it doesn't talk too much about the physical aspects of meditation, but it's very good in discussing the awareness and how you deal with it. And in my book, I try to make that accessible to people because it is very poetic.
Okay, very good. That's fascinating, and I think people will really benefit from reading the book and from connecting to these texts in a contemporary way. And so we're very, very pleased to be able to have been able to publish this important work. And we really recommend to readers that they go and look at it. The title again is The Way of Awareness in Taoist Philosophy, and it's easily found on our website, threepinespress.com. And so thank you very much again, Professor Giles, for being with us today. And we wish you great success, and we're looking forward to your next venture, whatever that may be. And so again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Livia. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I'm very happy that the press has published my book, and thank you for your time.